Welcome to Cultivating Culture, brought to you by Virginia Soccer Association and its Player Education Initiative. We hope that you enjoy this next episode as we look to equip our players, coaches, and parents with ways to cultivate a robust and growing culture. For more tools or to learn more about us, please check us out at vsaonline.org or on social media at Virginia Soccer Association. Thanks and enjoy. We are so excited that you would take the time to listen to our episode and gather all the information you can on cultivating culture. We hope that you enjoy and that you would subscribe to our podcast as we release different topics throughout the soccer season and calendar year that hit on key aspects to cultivating culture. We hope that we can come alongside our parents and coaches and give you a full bag of tools that'll allow you to help develop not only the players or kids that you're involved with, but your community and even yourself. Let's jump right in. See, at VSA, the reason why we think it's important to put a podcast like this together is we want to push and develop people that would have a growth mindset, that they'd be willing to challenge themselves and look within to expand their knowledge, that they wouldn't be fixed or believe that they have all the answers, but that we would work collectively for the better in all of us. This episode is going to focus really on developing an anti-bullying initiative that has come into youth sports and really in our schools and all around us. How can we as coaches and parents cultivate a culture where bullying is unacceptable? Inclusion is what we look for, and exclusion is something that we can see early on. See, I think it starts with the coaches, and I think it starts with the parents, that we set a standard and we see ourselves maybe in a different light. See, as coaches, we really should see ourselves not as someone that just teaches a sport, but rather looks to inspire individuals. If we come each day to our job as a coach, or maybe as our role as a parent, and we look at it, I'm not here just to teach because I'm here to teach, maybe right or wrong, or different scenarios within a game. How can I get a player to do X, Y, or Z? But rather, how do I inspire these individuals to raise their expectations of themselves and others around them, and raise the belief within themselves that they can achieve the things we want them to achieve. See, if we inspire people, we tend to pull out a culture that would even allow bullying. But as coaches and parents, and as players, these are real things that we're dealing with. So how do we look at creating a culture where this would not be acceptable? And if it is something that's happened, we would do our part of seeing it early enough to not allowing it escalate. I think for us to become serious about inspiring others, we have to first be inspired. See, you cannot give what you do not have. You can't ask of a player to be inspired, to have a culture that is inclusive and that allows others to thrive if you yourself don't believe in this. You can't stand there in front as a parent. Myself, I can't look at my children and say, I want you to include others. I want you to think of others. I want you to grow the environment around you and let others thrive while you thrive, and lift the level and the temperature of your environment if I myself am not willing to do this. Some of the first things that will deter a cultivated culture is the transference of ourselves onto the young people that we mentor. So mainly talking to coaches and parents right now, if we're transferring on to players a certain mindset or a thought, it can really do a huge damage to the inspiration that we're trying to do. Before we can ask our players to live up to these expectations or standards or whatever culture you're setting, whether it be at your club, your work, or your home, we have to really take a personal inventory and ask ourselves, are these things we're displaying? Once we are able to do this, then we can look at and guide a vision for the people we work with. See, some early signs to look for, whether it be in yourself or within your group that you're trying to cultivate, would be self-centeredness. Self-centeredness is a deterrent and a disastrous thing that will tear at the seams of culture. If it's all about you, it's going to be really tough for you to convince your players to be a part of a team. If it's all about one player or two players or set of players, it's going to be really hard to cultivate a culture that it's about the team. And if we're, like I said, if we're transferring emotions that we may have on a player based on outside circumstances, other players will pick up on that. Perfect example, like I said, I have 5 children myself, and if I treat one of my children and exclude them and maybe don't give them the care and love that I would give the other 4, it'd be very easy for the other 4 to turn on that one as well. To be mindful as a parent that I will not succeed all the time. I will not be perfect, but can I be willing to look at myself and find those cues? And then when I see it in my children, I'm able to then call it out. Or then as a coach, and I see it as a parent or player or coach, my players, I'll be able to call it out. What kind of demeanor do I have towards others? What kind of demeanor do my players have towards others? When I approach somebody that's new, different, maybe from a different culture, different economic status, maybe they're a new player on the team or group, what's my demeanor towards them? What's my demeanor towards authority? The referee, the opposing coach? Am I one that is looking to better the game, or am I one to look to tear down and blame and push off on others? Too many times we see coaches tear into referees, tear into the opposing team, and then ask our players not to. I think we disqualify ourselves a lot of times when we say, hey, put your hands down, don't argue. In 3 seconds prior to that, we were doing the exact same thing. I bring this up to kind of stir in us a mindset that creating and cultivating a culture of anti-bullying, of anti-exclusion is not something that is easily done by just saying, hey, don't be mean to each other. Don't be pushing others away or making fun of them or belittling them. Yes, those outside actions are things that we need to address and come after, but we need to really push on the person underneath it. John Wooden, a famous basketball coach, many of you probably heard, would always say to his players, it's much more important that the person you are becoming, not just the basketball player. The person is the most important thing. What kind of person are you becoming, and what kind of person or people are you developing? This is the key to discovering early moments of a culture that needs to be revived. Well, what kind of culture do we want? The first part here can be maybe a little depressing, or maybe make you feel like, oh no, my culture is falling apart. But honestly, it's not until we discover in ourselves and what's around us where there's deficiencies or areas of need that we can look within ourselves, become inspired, and then cast a vision to get to where we want to go. So what does a culture look like that would include everyone? Let me step back for a second. I don't want to give the impression that we're against competition. Including everyone a lot of times gets the bad rap of, well, if you have good character and good inclusion and everyone is welcome, then there's no competition. On the contrary, I work for VSA, and VSA has a player pathway and an opportunity for all soccer players, from the youth development academy through our travel program and our rec program to our little gunners who are 2 years old. So competition is a natural thing that's going to happen in youth sports. However, we can't sacrifice culture and character because we want to compete, but we don't need to sacrifice competing. What we're asking is, can we create a culture that thrives under competition, but raises up the people within it. That you get the most out of the players, coaches, and families within your organization. See, creating a proper culture that pushes away bullying, pushes away exclusion, is one that is other-centered. Other-centered. It's not about me. See, we started this by saying self-centeredness will kill and destroy any attempt to go. But if we're other-centered, so our coaches are focused on the players individually. See, our coaches and the parents, we're trying to push as a vision-inspired. This is where we want to get our players to. This is the full picture. And as you kind of cast a vision within yourself and you're inspired, like I said, you can't give to your players what you don't have. Be very simple. When I was in college, I only had a few dollars. And if somebody came up to me and said, hey, can I have $10? The answer to that would probably be no. I don't have $10. And a lot of college students could relate to that. But now that I have a job and a more stable financial situation, if somebody came up and said, can I have $10? I'd probably be able, in this circumstance, to give them $10. See, I'm able to give what I have, but you can't give what you don't have. You can't give a vision-inspired culture until you've caught the vision of your club, of your organization, and even your family. What's the vision for your family? What's the process? What is your family going to stand for and direct yourselves towards? And understanding that togetherness better. That we as coaches are going to look for what is unique about others. Sure, it is awesome having a player in the team who can score lots of goals. I love it. There's nothing like it. Put the ball in the back of the net. Great. But what other unique aspects do every player bring to the team? What are the things that they bring? And not only are you recognizing them, but are you bringing those things out in public in front of the team? And instead of transferring negative things that we were talking about before, but we're transferring positiveness onto each player. That the players and their teammates are seeing, yes, that's a unique thing about that player brings that is going to bring a bond for us. How does it make our community better and grow us towards our culture? By being together. These things that we constantly talk about really push back exclusion. Instead of focusing on putting out little fires, we instead are creating a culture where fires are nowhere to be seen, but the fire that burns within us is that all of us are in this together. I absolutely love this analogy. This is something that was shared to a bunch of coaches and staff when we were at a leadership retreat, and it was about the difference between a cruise ship and a battleship. Both ships about the same size, have about the same amount of people on them. There's a huge difference between the two. And you may have been on a cruise ship before, and you're going to be able to understand this quite quick. A cruise ship has about 3,000 people on it, but on that cruise ship, only about 300 do all the work. They do all the servicing. They take care of everything. They're the ones in charge. There's the one that's going. And everybody else on the ship, the 2,700, right, just are taken care of. And it creates this divide. There's the people enjoying, basking, being, for me, lazy, laying around, eating lots of food. And then you have 300 that are putting in all the work and a grind. Well, on a battleship, there's the same amount of people. There's 3,000 people that would be on a battleship. But every individual has a job. And every individual's job is intricate to success and to creating that ship and being able to move and do its job. See, creating that battleship mentality is looking at like this. So talking about this ship, they said, well, what do you think is the most important job on a battleship? And of course, being a military brat, my first answer was, the guy driving the ship, the one leading, the captain, the one that has the wheel, or possibly the guy shooting the guns, the dude scouting out looking for the enemy. And as we're kind of dialoguing about the different roles and jobs, they kind of stopped and said, well, you're not getting the point. Each job, every single job is important, and without it would lead to disaster. they mentioned a job that not many people think about, and it's the guys that paint the deck, and they paint the railings, and they paint the ship, and they continually clean and inspect how the ship looks. A job that most people would look at and go, not important. Cool, it looks nice, it's pretty, but honestly, it's not up there in the list. And the guy stopped and said, well, here's the issue. If the boat is not painted appropriately, if it's not taken care of, well, the sun can reflect off of it, and it can give away the location pretty quickly. And if the location is given away pretty quickly, the ship is sunk. The enemy knows where it's at. It puts into a great picture the mindset and culture that is developed there. Though we on the outside might look and go, well, that job is more important, that person's more important, and transfer that feeling and subconsciously look at it and go, well, we can get rid of that, we can get rid of that. You're not as valuable, you're not as valuable. And then people in that room would feel the same way and kind of move things around. But if we create a battleship mentality with us at VSA, within our teams, or in our families, or with you who are listening as a parent or a coach, if we create a battleship mentality and we capture a vision of what we're here for, and then we pull out the uniqueness and importance of each person and role that they have within the ship, and not only do we pull that out as a coach, but we inspire others to see it, it's then that the inspiration catches fire. It's then that the players start to realize that kid who may not be a starter on the team isn't just a kid on the team, but he's a piece, an important piece to what we're doing within this collective group. That they are part of this team, and they're going to push the level, and they're going to raise the water, and they're going to challenge each other to grow, develop, and be a part of this. It's then that we realize, like John Donne said, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent. No man can do this by himself, and it's until then that we have to realize, and then cast that vision onto others, that we'll be able to push away bullying, push away exclusion, and create an environment where inclusion and development is key. We talk about player development as if it's a abstract thing. Yeah, we're developing soccer players, or we're developing the next forward, or we're developing the next Alex Morgan. But really, player development is as a coach looking at an individual, assessing their needs, looking at their strengths, and drawing out of them their fullness. That's our hope with player education, parent education, this coaching stuff, this cultivating culture, is that we would look at each player not as an abstract picture on a wall, but as an individual, and say, this is why you are important. This is why you are needed, and speak that life into them. So far in this episode, we've been really looking at the overarching themes within creating a culture that would push away bullying, push away exclusion, and just invite an inspiring, robust ability to lift up all players and people around us, that we can push towards a common goal and create an environment that is thriving and full. Now, if nothing else, we really hope that it's at least made you ask the question about yourself, what do you have to give? Right? As a coach, what are you inspired to do? What are you inspired? What red flags may you've seen in yourself that you've been transferring onto others? Maybe you are in a place where you're seeing yourself and creating that vision and casting it, but weren't quite ready or knowing how to see it within your team. So now you can go and look and see, do I have a problem with self-centeredness? Do I have a problem with a culture that is divided, or the demeanor of how we work with others and look at others? Well, I also want to give you some practical things that we do at VSA, or what we hold our staff, players, and members to and look to do. Because it's important to put on some pillars that you can always point to. So when things happen, you can always say, yes, this lines up with our culture, or no, it doesn't. See, we ask all of our players and our staff that we would do this, understanding that there's going to be moments where we fall short. However, when we fall short, that's when we can lift each other up. That's a cultivating culture. We ask them this: we will always respect, honor, and lift others up. I think that if that's one of your pillars, you're going to have a unbelievable outcome of a culture that is full. If you can go at the end of the day and say, you know what, today my team respected each other, they honored each other, they lift each other up. As a coach, I was able to respect, honor, and lift up those around me. I think that would pay huge dividends in the environment in which you work. As an individual, I will look at the needs of others. That one will get you, right? If we spent time at looking, okay, what is their need? What is their need? And teaching our players to do the same. What does that player need? Do they need me to put my arm around them, give them a pat on the back and say, hey, no worries? Do they need me to pump them up? What do they need? What are their needs in this moment? We will seek out opportunities to make others feel special and welcome, while looking for ways to highlight hard work and a commitment to growth. This will change your practice environment. This will change your game environment. This will not only enhance your team dynamics, but it will push your players in games where maybe they don't have a lot left to give. But if this is something that is pulling it at them, it will give them that extra motivation. See, if we seek out opportunities to make others feel special and welcome while looking for ways to highlight hard work and commitment to growth, we are being intentional on player development to look specifically and highlight, maybe it's a player that has been struggling in the week. How do you look for ways that they bring uniqueness to the team? Maybe it's a player that is trying very hard to learn your system, your style of play, or maybe trying to do the things you're asking of them, but they're just not getting it quite yet. But you can see they're trying. Do you take the time to praise them and reward them for their diligence in this? Maybe it's a player that their technical ability isn't the strongest on the team, but their work rate is high, and they get out in the field and they give everything they have. Do we value them for their success, or do we value them for who they are as a person and their work they're putting in? See, we are really responsible for the environment in which we're creating. We're responsible. Once we realize that, we'll be able to stand up for each other. We'll be able to develop unity amongst our team. And this is when we understand that each person plays a specific role within the cog that is the team. Our hope in all of this is to grow the community around us, to give tools to our parents, our coaches, our players, to not only develop as soccer players, but like John said, to develop as a person. The person that you are is the most important thing. And to do that, we step back and ask you to be an anomaly. See, that is what I leave our players off with at every player education session. I ask them and plead with them to be an anomaly. An anomaly is something that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. It's expected that there will be divide in teams. It's expected or normal that there's bullying going on, and it's become a thing in our culture where we just push off to kids being kids, or boys being boys, or girls being girls, or however you want to break it down. That is unacceptable. To us at VSA, we're going to be an anomaly. We're going to take the extra effort and the extra ability to deviate from what is standard, normal, or expected, and we're going to pour ourselves into learning, growing and developing ourselves so that we can pour into our players, pour into them, and hopefully lift the level of everyone around us, both on and off the field. We thank you for taking the time to listen. Please subscribe to the podcast, like us on iTunes. Let us know any topics that you may want for your teams or things that you've been thinking of as we can continue to release our player education Cultivating Culture podcasts. For any tools or questions, please visit our website, www.vsaonline.org, or you can email me, bgumbali@vsaonline.org. My name is Bronson Gumbali. I'm the Player Education Director at Virginia Soccer Association. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a great week, and we'll see you out at the fields.